Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to day 2 of Vacation Bible School Story Time. Yesterday, we heard the story of the anointing of David to be the next king. God told the prophet Samuel that he regretted choosing King Saul. God sent Samuel to anoint David as the new king, but David would not get to be king until King Saul died. But even though God was not pleased with King Saul would not give up being king. King Saul's mind was tormented. Maybe he felt guilty for not listening to God. Someone told Saul to send for David because David was a good musician. When King Saul listened to David playing on his lyre, which is like a harp, he felt very peaceful. So Saul had David come to live with him. While he was living there, David became very good friends with King Saul's son, Jonathan. David and Jonathan made a friendship covenant. They promised to always help each other. King Saul could see that David was wise and had a heart for God. So King Saul put David in charge of more and more things. And finally, David was promoted to a high rank in the army, and he achieved many successes against the enemy armies. But then King Saul began to get jealous because people were singing praises of David even more than they sang praises for Saul. One day when David was playing his lyre for King Saul fell into a rage and he threw his spear at David. Jonathan was still a friend to David, and he helped him escape from King Saul. David had to hide in the wilderness and in the hills of the desert. An army of men joined David to help him. Day after day, King Saul searched for David. He plotted to kill David and those who helped him. But people who lived near the wilderness where David was hiding told King Saul where to find David. David knew that Saul was very close to catching him, and David asked a priest to bring him an ephod. An ephod was a garment worn by priests when they prayed, kind of like an apron. An ephod reminds me of a prayer shawl. This is a prayer shawl, which some people use when they pray. And I brought today my prayer shawl. So I'm going to put that on, and then I'm going to pray a prayer that David may have prayed, because this comes from the book of Psalms. So in the scroll, I have Psalm 86, a prayer of David. Lord, listen closely to me and answer me, David prayed. Guard my life because I am faithful. Save your servant who trusts in you. My Lord, I offer my life to you. You are good and forgiving, full of faithful love for all those who cry out to you. Listen closely to my prayer, Lord. Whenever I am in trouble, I cry out to you because you will answer me. Teach me your way, Lord, so that I can walk in your truth. I give thanks to you, my Lord, my God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever because your faithful love toward me is awesome. God heard David's prayers, and by the hand of God, David was able to escape. He escaped King Saul and his army. Now here's what happened. Saul's army was going around one side of a hill, trying to trap David. And David and his men were on the other side of the hill trying to escape. Just when David was about to be surrounded by King Saul and his army, a messenger came to tell King Saul that he had to go and fight the Philistines. And so King Saul and his army left, and David was saved. David named the place Escape Rock. Later, when David and his men were hiding in the back of a large cave. King Saul came into the cave, not knowing that David and his men were in the back of the cave. David snuck up behind Saul. He could have easily killed King Saul, and he was really tempted to get rid of him. But David knew that that would be wrong. He would not let his men hurt King Saul either. David relied on God, and he listened to God. Now, when King Saul found out that David could have killed him, but chose not to, Saul was very thankful that David had spared his life. And after that, King Saul stopped trying to have David killed. And King Saul said that he knew David would be a great king. Now, I wonder if you have a special way or a special place to pray to God. I have my prayer shawl that I like to use. I also like to go to the chapel at church to pray. I wonder why David wanted an ephod to pray. Do you think it helped him to feel closer to God? I wonder what there is that you might like to talk to God about. And know that God hears your prayer. He hears your prayers, however you say them, wherever you say them, whether you have a prayer shawl or an ephod or not. You can say your prayers out loud, or you can say them silently. God hears them. I hope you enjoyed day 2 of VBS Story Time. I'll see you again tomorrow.